Well, hello. How are you doing? You've reached the end, right? Yay. So good to be with you. What a wonderful event and a great afternoon. So, I believe that the most important thing that you have, the thing that makes you you, the thing that gives you your strength and your power, quite frankly, is your own creativity and your understanding of your own creative process. And I believe that so much that I've got 3 goals for our time together, our few moments together. Number 1, I want to explore with you why the famous scientist Albert Einstein was in fact an artist. Number 2, I'm going to ask you to actually do some stuff. You're going to have to engage in the creative process with me right now, right here, in a moment. And thirdly, I want to clearly define creativity and talk a little bit about the messiness of the creative process. So, you might notice the slide behind me says Einstein was an artist. That's kind of crazy, isn't it? Because when we think about Einstein, we think about a great scientist. We think about the theory of special relativity. We think about the greatest scientist of the 20th century. But I want to say to you, my goodness, he embodied an artistic temperament, and he understood his creative process so well that he was able to produce essentially 400 pieces of original work. Can you imagine producing 400 pieces of original work over that in your lifetime? That's what he was able to do. So we know about Einstein as the scientist, but did you know that he loved music? Did you know that he taught himself how to play Mozart sonatas, and apparently relatively successfully, because music teachers in the city where he lived commented on his ability to do so. He loved Mozart because he loved the beauty and he loved the structure. And I'm so fascinated by that. What he saw in music, the beauty and the structure, is echoed or mirrored in what he saw in theoretical physics, beauty and structure of the universe around us. So Einstein embodied the goals of the artist in the way that he went after and learned Mozart. Okay, if my PowerPoint clicker will work, here we go. So my second goal, I told you I was going to ask you to do something, that we're going to engage the creative process together. And so here we are. The creative process involves the giver, that person who does the creation, who does the art, and it also involves the receiver, right? So there is a cycle in the creative process. And I'm going to ask you to serve in both capacities. So first, we're going to listen to a musical excerpt. And I want you to do so really actively. So no passive listening here. We're going to be actively involved in the creative process. I want you to think about how this brief excerpt impacts you, your body, physically, intellectually, your mind, and your emotions or your sensations. Jeff, would you play for us this first excerpt? Just 20 seconds. So thank you for that. Oh my goodness. So what did you experience as you listened to the Verdi Requiem, which that part was composed in the 1870s and premiered in the 1870s. So guess what? You participated in a creative process that began over 100 years ago. Isn't that incredible? How did that impact you? Did you feel something physically as you listened to that music? Were you thinking about what you were hearing and processing it intellectually? And then was there an emotional content as well, or some emotional reaction that you had? A point that I want to make in giving this example to you is this. Music and the arts and the creative process engages more than just one aspect of you. It engages the total person. My PowerPoint keeps skipping here. That might be the operator error. So the second thing that I wanted you to do in terms of participating in the creative process, I want you to do something. I want you to actually create some sound with me. So I'm going to ask you to stand up. I hope you're game. Can't help it. You've got a singer in front of you here. I'm going to ask you to put one hand on your chest, one hand on your belly, and I want you to focus on a really low, deep breath. Yes? So you're going to take in some really great inhalations. It's going to make you feel great. Yes, and now I'm going to ask you to do something kind of wacky. I'm going to ask you to explore your sound, to create sound, right? The sound guys aren't sure what I'm going to do here, so they're trying to protect your ears, because I'm going to ask you to make this sound on the word woo. Sounds like this. Woo! I want you to explore your sound, your most authentic, honest sound with a deep breath and on woo. Are you ready? Breathe. And now, woo! That was great sound. Okay, you can have a seat. So I'm going to ask you the same kinds of questions. Did you notice what you were doing physically? Was there an impact on your body as you created that sound? Were you trying to process what you were doing? Did you have an intellectual response to that? And again, what did it feel like to you? What was the sensation of the sound? What happens when we do art? Again, I'm going to submit to you that when we participate in the creative process, when we do art, we engage the world in a much different way, as a totality of our being. And I'm going to further submit to you that that's something that Einstein really understood. So one of the reasons why I say Einstein was an artist is because he interacted with the world in the way that artists tend to do, with curiosity and with their whole being. Okay, third goal, right? I've got 10 minutes, so I've got to keep these goals moving. Got to move quick. Creativity in the creative process. So when you talk about what creativity is, what does it mean to participate in the creative process? What does it mean to do art, to experience creativity? Well, you can't talk about creativity without bringing up a major researcher's name. His name is Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and I have to do the hand motions or I can't get the name out. Right? Over a period of many, many years of intense research, he found that there are three types of creatives. So there are the folks who see the world a little bit differently, experience the world differently themselves. There are folks who simply have unusual thoughts. And then there are folks who change the culture. And I think that we can all agree that Einstein fulfilled all three types of creativity, which is kind of interesting. Now, the second part of this that I wanted to mention to you is that Einstein seemed to have an intuitive understanding of his own creative process. Now, why do I say that? Well, there's one particular quote that leads me to believe that he very much understood what he was doing, because he said, "Ideas come upon me suddenly. I can't predict them, but they're rooted in the structure of what I know." So that's interesting. There's both chaos as well as balance or restraint or order in that process. His colleagues commented that he had a very childlike curiosity that propelled him forward. And further, he was capable of being very, very silly. Now, I know that may sound silly to you, just to mention that he was capable of being silly, but it means that you can operate with a little bit of abandonment, which gives rise to creativity. Okay, bear with me here. I've got to explain the middle part of this slide really well. Not my words. What does it take to produce original work? Again, when I look at Einstein and what he accomplished, right? Amazing path-forming ideas related to science, over 400 pieces of original work. He understood that the creative process was messy. He was able to juggle multiple ideas at the same time, sometimes contradictory ideas at the same time. And his colleagues noted that and felt that that indeed was part of his success. Well, when I read about his process and his understanding of the creative process, it made me think about Pixar, okay? And here's why. Pixar's president made a statement that really struck me. Talking about the creative process behind all of those box office hits, including Frozen, he said, "What you need to know is that at some point, all of our movies suck." Again, not my word, his. And then he said, further, the creative process for Pixar, this very successful creative team, the process for them involves going from suck to not suck, in his words. Again, not mine, right? Here's my point. one of the greatest creative entities in this era, recognizes the same thing essentially that Einstein recognized in the 20th century, and that is, if we are to bring forth original work, if we are to bring forth our best work, you've got to be willing to go through the discomfort of the creative process. So Einstein was capable of being very silly, as this photo reveals. And as I close here, I would submit to you that his ability to create an internal environment that was okay with risk, okay with the messiness of the creative process, that enabled him to make connections that other people didn't make, and enabled him to find focus and meaning, again, in things that other people had not found focus and meaning in. It was his ability to create and maintain that internal environment that led to his success. And so, as I close, Seth Godin penned a book called The Icarus Deception. And in it, there's this wonderful quote about what artists are and artistry, and I think gives us an eye towards the creative process. I'm going to have to turn to see it because my eyes are just that bad. An artist is someone who uses bravery, insight, creativity, and boldness to challenge the status quo. It's the journey. It's who we are, it's what we do, and it's what we need. And I would say to you that that idea of what artistry is, the role of the creative process, it means that it's not just for a few, it's not just for the artists. In fact, it's for all of us. My very last thought is this. When Einstein died, there were folks who said, we just need to study his brain. We need to understand why he was so smart, why he was so intelligent. We need to get a hold of his brain and look at the structure, right? What if his success was not so much about the structure of his brain, but it was about the structure of the internal environment that he created, that it enabled him to see connections. Thus, I submit that Einstein was an artist. Thank you so much.